Hey everybody. These children are about to freak out because that door's locked. Hey Christina. Hey Andrea. Hey Natasha. Okay, I'm just gonna put my headphones in. I'm at a friend's house because it's just easier doing life with friends, and especially when they have children. So the Millennial Mom Blog is on. Yay. So I'm Jessica Thomas. I'm the head of membership here at the Maternal Health and Wellness Network. Today, our last day for Maternal Mental Health Week out of the year 2020, and we are going to have Kimberlee Ward with the Millennial Mom Blog, and she is going to talk to us about setting boundaries. And I am super stoked because this is a place in my life, and I'm sure a lot of moms' lives, where we really lack the courage to set boundaries and keep those boundaries in place. So I cannot wait to talk to her. I am going to invite her on. My husband just texted me.
Hi.
Hey, let me back up to my Facebook, like, like, oh.
I know, I'm like in the baby's room. I have like this whole setup going on.
Oh, yeah, mine's, that would be a really cool Instagram live, like how things go on behind the scenes.
Yes.
I used to be in direct sales with a makeup company, and so I would get on Facebook Live and do my makeup, and it's like stacked on diaper boxes and books and all this stuff. So, I'm Jessica. I'm the head of membership for the Maternal Health and Wellness Network, and I am super excited to be talking to you today, Kimberlee, about setting boundaries. But first, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit about the Millennial Mom Blog, and what you're doing and how you got here and all that good stuff?
Yeah, so first of all, it's nice to finally meet you. I've been watching all the lives, and I know Lisa and Christina and all of them. So I'm Kimberlee. I run the Millennial Mom Blog. I am a mom of two. I have a 5-year-old and a 5-month-old.
Bless you.
Yeah, it's been interesting. I experienced pretty severe postpartum depression anxiety with my first. So far, not with my second,
Awesome.
thankfully. And through going through that experience and starting my journey through recovery, I just kind of didn't really have any resources and found this online community, and that's where I started sharing my journey. And then I actually met Lisa through a training that I did to run peer support groups, because I'm also the co-founder of the Mom to Mom Collaborative, and we offer support, education, and community for moms in Central New Jersey and Eastern PA, and of course online as well. So yeah, it's everyone. I feel like everyone knows everyone in this community.
Yeah, it's someone. This week, I'm sure you have felt the same, but as a PMAD survivor, and this week, and also being behind the scenes with different networks, it's been like just the epitome of advocacy and getting the word out and, sharing our stories and our message. And I'm sure that you use your blog to do that as well with, sharing your story. And we had someone on earlier this week from Motherhood Understood, Jen Schwartz. We talked a lot about storytelling and about how that really helps in the peer-to-peer support by another mom, hearing that, oh, wow, she went through that too. And I'm not alone. Our stories are so very different, but so very similar in the same way. So,
it's funny you say that. So when I first started my blog, or started kind of my Instagram account, Katie Crenshaw, she was the first person that I had, I'd read her story, and we had kind of connected a little bit. And so it gave me the confidence to share my story of what I was going through. And now it's this ripple effect, right? Like every time someone shares a story, someone else gets the confidence to share theirs as well. I think that's what's so amazing about it. It is so important, you know, to know that you're not alone. And, oh, hey, someone reads something, they're like, oh, I went through that, but I didn't know that's what it was. And then,
Absolutely.
you know, they go down the research, you know, they start finding all of these things, and it really helps their journey through all of this as well.
Yeah. So setting boundaries.
Boundaries.
Teach us your ways, friend.
I'm not an expert, but I could say in the
I'm
past,
taking
since I have I literally have my notes right here. Since going on this journey, you know, since having postpartum, I didn't really grow up in a family that talked about boundaries. It was kind of like my family was, yeah. I grew up in a very like conservative family, and it was like my parents' way or the highway. And, you know, especially watching all of the women in my family, like they didn't, not that they didn't set boundaries, but I think that they kind of did everything to diffuse the men's reaction in our family, if that makes sense. Like,
Totally makes sense.
my mom would do things because she knew that it would frustrate my dad. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but I think when you're consistently doing that, that's not okay.
Yeah.
So for me, like going on this journey and going to therapy was really my way of finding boundaries and realizing boundaries are okay. They are necessary. They are super necessary in our motherhood journey. And I think there's so many levels to it. There's so many different boundaries that we can set as moms. So I'd love to kind of go through them. I wrote out
Yeah, absolutely. When you brought up like families not setting boundaries, all that stuff. So my mom, I lost her 7 years ago. So I had her during the birth in the first 5 months of my first son's life. So I have 3 children, all boys, 7, 5, and 3.
Yeah.
And she was a pro at setting boundaries.
Yeah.
She was a fierce mama bear. And, you know, I think that that's where society kind of says a person who sets boundaries, if society and if this, you know, is not emotionally intelligent, a person who sets boundaries is viewed as a negative, you know, that, oh, you won't let me do this, you won't let me do that.
Yeah.
I remember my mom telling me, you know, when the baby's born, don't pass him around, you know, let you snuggle, you know, do this. And
Yeah.
I remember trying to breastfeed him less than 12 hours old, the lactation counselor being in there, and they will never see this, but my cousin, bless her heart, she brings her damn knitting bag and some chips to my hospital room like, honey, what are you doing? And so my friend was like, y'all need to get out. She's got to learn how to feed her kids. Y'all can wait out there. We will let you know when she's done. And they ended up leaving. And I still thank her today. I'm like, thank you so much for kicking them out. So I hope that you touch on that too, about how we can be viewed negative by setting boundaries, but how we really should not give a crap, because it's about us and our well-being and our family's well-being. So let's go, girl.
So let's talk about the individual first, us as moms. So like, I love that you talked about breastfeeding first. So I didn't breastfeed my first, and we just had a lot of complications. She had a severe dairy allergy, and I am currently breastfeeding my second, and it's just like such a very different experience. You know, we went through a lot of feeding issues. She had a tongue and a lip tie, and so I have to do this weird, I like pump during the day and I nurse at night, and it's weird,
Totally
but
awesome.
it works. Like,
absolutely.
And it was a boundary that I personally had to set, because I could not just constantly like fighting with her and trying to figure it out and it not working. And I was like, you know what? We're doing this and that's it. And having the people around me who are going to support that. So finding a lactation consultant who was, you need to do what's best for you. What's I could have set for myself, having my husband be like, whatever you need, how can we help you? How can I support you in this journey? And again, the flip side of that, if you're breastfeeding and you're finding it's affecting your mental health, or you're really having negative feelings and you need that space from your child and you need to look to formula, that's okay. That's a
Absolutely.
okay boundary that you need to set for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Like, feeding is not black and white. Feeding your child is not black
Absolutely.
and white. Like, it's not you're breastfeeding or you're not. I think there's so many in-betweens that we don't talk about enough.
Mm-hmm.
And it's okay, whatever works for you and your emotional state and your mental state, like, that's what needs to happen. And I feel like we need to talk about that a lot more, for mothers who are going through this transition, right? Because you go into the hospital and it's, you should be doing it this way, or you should be doing it that way, or you hear family that's like, oh, well, you shouldn't breastfeed, or you shouldn't formula feed. And it's like, okay, well, first off, when you're pregnant, setting that boundary of, I'm going to feed my baby however I need to feed
Absolutely.
them. However, me and my baby need to get through this together,
Mm-hmm.
whatever that looks like. And
so
I know
you mentioned, how like we view that, and also, moms, if it affects our mental health by choosing like this way over this way, depending on what's going to make us feel better. So studies actually show, I'm a lactation counselor. So studies actually show what we feel about breastfeeding is what. So if we want to formula feed and we can't, that's going to increase the risk of our PMAD. If we can't because our family pressures us or, whatever. So if we want to breastfeed and we can't, that increases the risk. If we want to breastfeed and we do, that decreases the risk. If we want to formula feed and we do, that decreases the risk of a PMAD. So I think the common thing here is how we feel about a situation, what makes us feel good, what clear boundaries we have set for ourselves, and like you said, putting those in place and knowing that it's not black and white, it's completely, like 1,000 bazillion shades of gray, and whatever we need to do to survive during this time, and also thrive as well.
Yes, I think I love that word in motherhood. It's like not just surviving, but thriving, and how can we get there? Because those first few months are really, really tough. And I think when we support mothers and we give them the resources that they need in those first few months to figure out how they can thrive, that really sets up the foundation for our entire postpartum and motherhood journey. As you said, your mom, she helped you in that moment and she really fought for you. I think that's so awesome.
Yeah.
So a big one in our house that is really, really important for me is bedtimes. I have a big boundary on bedtimes. Like, I have early bedtimes for my kids just because at the end of the day, either myself or my husband and I, we need that time to de-stress.
Be alone, breathe, not wipe a butt, not have to fill a juice cup.
Yes. Not having to make one more snack, eat my own snacks. And really, we need that time with our partners. We need that time with ourselves, like to meditate, to exercise, to watch a show, to just zone out, to connect with ourselves at the end of the day. It's so, so important. And I know a lot of people who have set that boundary for themselves. And it's tough. Obviously, I know as a first-time mom, hearing all these things and you're like, I'm not doing that. Or, how can I do that? My baby, their sleep time, it's over time, right? These aren't things that happen like right then and there. I mean, my first, we set that boundary. I finally gotten to like a stage where I was like, this needs to happen at like 3 because I was so exhausted. And I was like, all right, we need to set this boundary. I think, boundaries can be set at any time you need them to be. It's not like something you have to start off with right away or you can't go back to, it's whatever you need in that moment.
Absolutely. So with bedtime, I remember when my first child started kindergarten, and so my middle child was in pre-K, and obviously we were having to be at school before 8 o'clock, and then they would be going all day and have homework. And I remember them going to sleep at 8 o'clock for the first time ever in their whole lives. And I told my husband, I was sitting on the couch, he was sitting in the recliner, we were watching like show, or we might not have even been watching anything. I don't remember, but I remember saying to him, "This is how we do it. This is how parents survive. This is the stuff they don't tell you about. Like, just wait until your kid gets to school and they're going to bed at 8 o'clock." And now that we've had the COVID-19 and school is out and all of that stuff, they're going to bed at whatever time they want.
Yeah.
You know, but they sleep in the morning. And so I get to sleep in the morning.
Yeah.
So that is a boundary that I'm willing to sacrifice, because sleep is important to my self-care. So
Yes.
however that needs to look for me, again, a gray area.
Exactly.
Totally cool.
Yeah, no, that's super important. Sleep, I mean, we know sleep is a big factor when it comes to PMADs, especially in those early days and even later on. I mean, setting that boundary and realizing, like, that's great. If your kid goes to bed later and they're sleeping in and you just sleep in, like, that's really good. That's currently our house as well with my 5-year-old. She's like staying up a little bit later and then sleeping in. And like we get that time in the morning to just drink a cup of coffee. It's amazing.
Absolutely. Yeah,
so it's
absolutely.
Like being flexible too. I think boundaries, you really have to be flexible with them, right? Because they're always changing as you're changing, as your child is changing, as your relationship with your partner is changing, as the world changes. Being flexible is super important. And mentioning your partner, this is a good one to talk about boundaries with your partner. From day one, like you experienced this even during your pregnancy, right? Like your boundaries with your partner, like maybe you feel uncomfortable in your skin and you don't like people touching you. You don't like that feeling. Yes, like people don't talk about that in pregnancy enough. Like I was so touched out, especially with my first. I gained a lot of weight and it was very uncomfortable, and I didn't really understand all of the things that were changing, and I just didn't want everyone on top of me. And voicing those boundaries of, I can't handle this. Can't handle what's going on, and I can't handle you being all over me.
Absolutely.
I think that's a really, really big one to start from there, and it keeps going, right? So when the baby arrives, setting boundaries of, I can't be the only one up at 3 a.m. Like, even if I'm breastfeeding, like, right? It's a hard boundary. That's a hard conversation, because I know with my first, men or partners don't always understand. They don't always know what's going on. And having a conversation is the biggest, I don't know how to say it, the biggest parallel with boundaries, having communication, right? Like we can't set a boundary and only keep it in with ourselves. If it affects everyone else in the house, right? Like if it's an internal boundary, great. If it's one that you're making personally, but if it's something with your partner, you can't set a boundary and then expect them to just know.
Absolutely.
Right.
You know, I'm a Lamaze certified childbirth educator too, and I've taught a bunch of mamas. And when I first started out, the piece of the curriculum that was mine was the infant, care and postpartum class, and that was before I had my third. And things kind of went crazy, so I would talk to the parents and say, like, Lamaze has done this research saying that you're gonna love this, okay? That 11 hours of our day is spent caring for a newborn. I'm like, 11? 11, you say? How about like 28? How about 28 of our hours, okay? Because anyway. So I was like, okay, this is an average. So I want you to think about now your 24 hours in your day and where your time is being spent. So you're talking about getting ready, which now includes mascara and lipstick only, and wet hair. Grocery shopping, preparing meals, couple time, your social time with friends, your work time, your sleep time, all of these things. And so I would have them do that, and then I would have them take, okay, so I'm going to need you to take 11 away from there. So where are you going to get your time from? And so then the couples talk about, okay, well, obviously dad's still going to have to go to work, so he can't take 11 hours, out of that. And, or when mom goes back to work, or, we're going to have to sacrifice our social time. We're going to have to set that boundary and say, sorry, we can't hang out and throw back Coors Lights every weekend.
Yes.
And, so
I can't go to dinner at 7:30.
No, no. And you may be eating with the baby on your boob.
Yep.
At the table. And I would encourage the dads, especially, it doesn't matter how the mom or how the baby's being fed, but this is the system that worked at our house. And this is how, the boundary with sleep, everybody's kind of putting in their own work. So when the baby wakes up, my husband would go, and they slept in the room with us. In their little bassinet. We know how, anyway.
Yeah.
So he would go and he would change the baby's diaper immediately. He would hand me the baby, and he would go back to sleep for the time that I nursed. And, or, because I only breastfed for 8 months, so he handed me the baby. I had the baby screaming in my face for the 5 minutes that he was preparing a bottle, but we shared that burden. It wasn't mom doing every single thing at night and dad sleeping. We shared in that. But what I thought was so important is to tell parents how to do that, to educate them on your life is going to change. I remember mourning the fact that, and having to figure out, why am I so sad? Why am I so sad right now? I'm in the bed. My husband's beside me. I feel really alone. I feel like I should cry. And I'm like, I can't remember the last time we snuggled.
Right.
I mean, like,
yeah, those things just get stripped away, and you don't even realize. One day you wake up and you're like, when's the last time I held my husband's hand?
Exactly.
Yeah, it's wild. And I love that you say that. So like our system for sleep, once we got out of the newborn phase and like into like, the 4 or 5 months is like, my baby does not like sleep. She doesn't. She likes to eat a lot.
Absolutely.
That's who she is. We've tried, full feeds during the day. It doesn't work sometimes. That's just who she is, and we've come to accept it. So how do we deal with that? So if I'm up, say she wakes up at 1, say she wakes up at 3, say she wakes up at 5. By 5 a.m., if I'm starting to hit that point, my husband wakes up. I said, all right, it's your turn. You need to tap in. This is my boundary because I'm hitting my limit. Boundaries, limits, like same thing. It's just you need to know when that limit is and being okay with that and having that conversation with your partner and both of you, because there are moments where my husband's like, he's great. He's a very hands-on dad and he hits his limit too. And it's like it's like wrestling. When one person needs to tap out, then the other one needs to come in.
Absolutely.
Like in our house, especially now with 2, like that is it. Like
absolutely.
It's really important having those conversations ahead of time. I love that you were doing that.
So, I have heard other people do this too. This did not work for our family because my second and third child would not take a bottle at all. And so I've heard that, splitting up the days, like dad, you're going to wake up Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and mom's going to wake up Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. And, y'all are going to split this day and all of that. So I have a question, and I'm sure other people out here are thinking it. I know our husbands are unicorns, but what do you have to say to the mom whose husband's ain't about that life, ain't about the boundary life? What do you say to that?
Yeah, so my husband didn't understand it at first. And my way of kind of communicating my needs and my boundaries was sending him articles. Like, he's a big reader. He was really like, he'll read anything. And if it comes from someone else's ear, he listens. Or someone else's mouth. Like, that's, if I say it, maybe we're not gonna listen to it. But if
Yeah.
Carol over here says it, then maybe we're gonna listen to it. So I take what Carol said and I would send it to him, and he would start to get it. And it wasn't overnight, but slowly but surely he'd be like, oh, that's what you were talking about. Or sometimes maybe if we have a good relationship with our mother-in-laws, we can say, I know, like, I like, and I'll say, like, that's a relationship that grows, right, with time. Not for everyone, but some of us. Like, there are moments where it's like, I'm struggling with this with your child, you know, your child, and it's not big. I know, this is a hard one. This is a really, like, advanced
We're
one.
going to talk about mother-in-laws next.
We
and
are.
Boundaries. I want to go there next.
Or even like maybe you're like, I know my mom has a really great relationship with my husband, and she can sometimes have that conversation. Or even your dad. It's kind of hearing it out of someone else's mouth. So like if you have a friend whose husband is the unicorn, right? Like, and maybe he can talk to them, because I like my husband, he is, and if my friend's struggling, I'm always like, hey, maybe you can like talk to Josh and say like,
Yeah.
this is how, you know, hey, like this is, we got to support them.
Yeah.
It's tough. It's really tough. I think finding something that they relate to and putting it in those terms.
Yeah.
So like, again, with my husband.
Reading your partner.
Reading your partner. Yes.
Knowing how effective, or the most effective way that they will learn and retain this information. And, you know, we could also make it like a reward system.
Yes.
You know?
I love this comment. My husband learned through me leaving and saying, you do it and see how it is. 100%. I believe in that. I always say, if I didn't come with a manual. Okay. If I can do it, you can do it. Here you go. Figure it out. Like there's been moments where I've had to do that because it just wasn't getting to the point. And I think, you know, if you both are okay with that and that's a system that works, like go for it.
Yeah. You know, so she also says he also had postpartum depression symptoms, and you know, in dads this looks totally different. They are withdrawn. They might not, you know, they're trying to find other stuff to do besides come home. They may be, you know, want to do all these things. And you know, for depression in women is different. I thought it was. And my husband, I know, had some of those symptoms, and I was not, you know, reading that, but thankfully we worked, you know, through that. It was over and all of that good stuff. And so, you know, I think in setting boundaries in momming and in parenting, this does affect the dad too. And it's also for his health and wellness, not just mom's, but the family, the whole family, you know, as a whole. So I promised we would talk about mother-in-laws. What say you, Kimberlee?
Oh, this is I mean, it's a tough one. I think it's
Come on, girl.
It's so tough. I love I'm gonna say I love my mother-in-law. I'll use my own personal example. I love my mother-in-law, and that relationship it's grown over time. It wasn't always great. You know, it's a really tough relationship to navigate. And I know that whatever your relationship is with your mother-in-law, you have to be on the same page with your spouse about it, because that is their
number one.
Yes, that is their mother, and realize and having a conversation with, this is how your family or your mother makes me feel.
Absolutely.
Being honest and open with it, because they don't know that. They don't know how you feel. You know, my husband didn't know how his family made me feel, or I didn't know how my family made him feel. So having that honest conversation of, this is how I'm feeling, this is what I'm going through, these are the boundaries that I think would help me. So like, for instance, when things were not okay, saying like, you know, I can't handle this right now, or I can't, you know, maybe I can't handle a holiday right now. And, you know, having that that's a tough conversation, and it's not easy. It's a really, really tough thing to navigate, but the boundaries with your in-laws are so, so important, because I think when you set the boundaries, there's room for everyone to grow.
Absolutely. So I'll say something about this. with boundaries with in-laws, because I have navigated this as well. Something that I have realized is that some mother-in-laws know how to be mothers, but they don't know how to be grandmothers.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So I have had to set the boundaries within myself and kind of psych myself up. You know what? I grew these kids in my uterus and they came out of my vagina and I fed them with my breast. I'm pretty sure I know how to handle my kids or do this or do that, you know. So in being confident in my ability to mother, my you know,
Yes.
my ability to mother,
Your intuition, you know, there you
exactly, your mama gut intuition. I love that. Absolutely, 100%. You know what to do. This is your family. These are your children. This is your husband. And setting the boundary, clear boundaries, you know, and not wavering those boundaries because it offends someone.
Yes.
Because their offense is their problem. And, you know, of course, husband's totally on the same page. You know, we've talked about that. So, yes.
Yeah.
But I think, you know, I think a lot of reasons why people lack boundaries and setting boundaries is because we're not confident in ourselves and our ability.
Yes.
And, you know, for instance, I was told this when I went to a childbirth class with my first. You know, if somebody is coming to your house to see the baby, make sure they're bringing a casserole and they're going to vacuum your carpet before they look at your baby, you know. And so setting boundaries in the postpartum period with visitors and, you know, doctor's appointments and all of this stuff, we think that we owe it to society to let everyone see our child and hold our child while we fold laundry and do dishes and all of that stuff. But that is not how this works, you know. So going ahead and planning for the postpartum period, thinking about those boundaries and what you're going to set. Like, we would love to have you visit on Sunday from the hours of 3 to 4, you know, and setting that boundary for your sanity, for your health, for your baby, you know, all of that good stuff. So what are some other ways, you know, that boundaries affect us, or other boundaries that we may need to think about?
Yeah. So before we get that, I just want to say it's okay to set boundaries, especially with family and friends who don't respect your decisions with your individual family. I think that's a really big thing. I know Glennon Doyle, she has her new book, Untamed, and she talks about this. And it's, if somebody, I forget the quote, but it's basically like, it's okay to let people on your island who are not a part of your island, basically. Like, if they're not on the same page as you, or if they're not respecting your decisions, it's okay to not let them on.
It's okay.
And I think that's yes, like,
build them a raft and send them off to sea.
And I know for me growing up, I didn't see that. Like, my parents, they kind of gave in to everyone because family is family, and that's what you do.
This is what we always did. Well, this is what we did. Well, this is what we did. Well, welcome to 2020, ladies.
Yes. It's okay to break that. Like, it is healthy to break that. It's okay to do whatever you need to do for you and your family.
Absolutely.
So another one that I love to talk about, especially being a blogger, is social media. It's a big one, especially for new moms. It's tough. We're talking about all these things. It's, you know, we're talking more about PMADs. We're talking more about, you know, those early days and the tough moments of motherhood. But there's also not a lot of people who are talking about that. And, you know, even if they are talking about it, but they're also sharing good things too. I know we all do it. Like, we want to share good things that are happening in our life or things that we're doing. But in a moment of weakness, or if you're having a tough day where it's like, I am not feeling good about myself, I'm not feeling good about my mothering, I'm not feeling good about my relationship, if I get on social media and I'm scrolling and I'm looking at all these things, that's only going to feed the fire.
Your
and
judgment self.
yeah, and having that boundary of, okay, I'm not having a good day today. I need to put social media down. And a good thing that I did a couple of weeks ago, I was, especially in a time of COVID, we're all in a heightened state. My friend and I was like, you know what, social media is really affecting me. Why don't we push ourselves to have like a social media free afternoon? And like, if one's struggling, like text me and I'll, motivate you to not get on. And it really helped. Like it soothes
Social media anonymous.
yeah,
we need little tips. You got 2 hours. You were 2 hours free.
Yes. But it's true, because I think in motherhood, when you just need to zone out, like after your kids have just like taken so much from you, you're like, oh, let me just get on social media and scroll. But it really does have a negative effect sometimes, especially for a new mom who is struggling. But in the same regard, it's who are you following? It's a good boundary to look at who you're following. And if you're looking at people who are only sharing the highlight reel, like maybe don't follow those people. Maybe follow people who share a little bit more of the hard stuff and the good stuff, or share, only follow people who are sharing like the real of it. Whatever you need to do to help your own mental state and your own, whatever you need to see in that moment.
Yeah, keeping your inner circle. And I can remember my mom telling me, like, I was born in 1984, so one of the really popular movies was E.T. And we had it on VHS. And for those of you who are too young, the VHS is the VCR, and the tape was this big, and you put it in and you played it. So we had it on VHS, and when E.T. at the very end, I would cry. I want him to come back. I want him to come back, And she was trying to explain to me, but this is pretend. This is make-believe. I feel like that when we join Facebook and Instagram and Twitter or Clicker or Flickr or what, Snapchat, TikTok, all the things, there needs to be a button that you click that you have to agree to. Some of what you see may be make-believe.
Yes.
Some of what you read may not be from credible sources.
Yes.
People are pretending. We always want to put the filter. We always want to make things look right. And so as a mom who, my children are 3, 5, and 7, 2 of them are in school, which school was shot all to Hades in March with this COVID crap.
Yes.
I live in very rural eastern North Carolina, so we don't have the Wi-Fi, Zoom, all of that good stuff going on in my school district. Yeah. So one thing that was really bothering me and sent me into a tailspin, and I had to like snap myself together, was the quarantine school moms doing all of this stuff with their kids. And I'm like, one, having flashbacks to, I feel like I brought home a new baby, because this is what it feels of, this is never going to end. This sucks. Where is the end? And I told this story the other day, but I have to tell you because it's so funny. I saw all of these moms doing this stained glass window where you tape the window up and you paint it. Did you see that?
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm like, is this a good idea? I feel like my kids, I'm not enriching them enough. I don't know what paint has to do with enrichment, but work with their fine motor skills, and it'll be a team building activity, and all of this stuff. And so I asked my husband, do we have any masking tape? No, but we have electrical tape. Well, electrical tape, you have to like chew it. You can't, there's no tearing of the stretch or whatever. Yeah. So I spent like 57 hours taping the window up. Nobody told me that. Nobody told me that it was not going to be easy. Nobody told me that, Jessica, you're type A, so your lines are going to be straight. Your lines are going to be straight, and you're going to want to tape this over 57 times. And then nobody told me that my kids are going to paint one shape
and be over it
and be done.
Yes.
And so then I spend the next 2 hours with my Crayola finger paint and this little tiny little brush, going and it's so perfect. And I'm like, this just sucks, But then, you know what I did? I took a picture. Ta-da! Look what we did.
Yeah.
Ta-da! And but then, so I had a little confession time. I'm like, y'all don't do it. And people, they still continue to do it. And I'm like, does nobody see this? Like, this was kind of hard. This was kind of difficult.
Everyone did that with the chalk too.
Yeah, no, I didn't do the chalk. I was done. After that, I'm like, screw Pinterest. I don't care what y'all doing at your house, but at my house, we're playing in the mud in our underwear. Like, we're feeding chickens. We are staying alive. Okay, we are quarantining ourselves and staying alive.
But this is a good one to talk about. Like, I have a preschooler, and her school just like basically dropped. Like, she had been going to school, and it was like, we're home. Okay, we're not going to give you anything. And I was like, what? Okay. But like, I am not, my husband and I are very different. I'm more of like a social, my child needs to learn how to socialize. She needs to learn how to like not be a jerk, how to have a conversation with somebody, how to express her feelings. And my husband's like, she needs to learn her alphabet. Like, she needs to learn how to, do the alphabet. She needs to, and I'm like, okay, so let's compromise. Like, let's figure out how to do both of this. But also, I'm not going to sit down and do these things with her because I have a 5-month-old. Like, and you're working, and like, and I have work stuff too. Like, I cannot do all of this. So the first couple of weeks, though, it was a lot on me, and I was like, all right, I have to do this. And thankfully, like, we had bought all these books, like the activity books, and so I was just doing that. But after a while, I was like, you know what? I am losing my mind. My preschooler hates me. Literally said, I don't like mom school. I wish I was
exactly.
I'm like, you know what? I don't like it either. So let's not do it. And here we are. We're done.
Here we are.
Like,
we're thriving.
We are thriving. Exactly. Yes. Like, she's out there, she's counting to 20, like, with how many bugs she can find. And I'm like, there you go. Absolutely. Like, she knows what she's doing. It doesn't have to be this black and white thing. Or it doesn't have to be a Pinterest perfect activity.
Pinterest is the devil. It's good for tattoo inspiration and an occasional recipe and a floor plan for a new house, but that's it.
Yes, I love that. Are there any boundaries that you want to talk about?
Nikki, you got any questions? I've got a friend.
Yes.
Here. So I don't think so. I just think that if there's a message that I would want to say to moms, it's be confident and don't worry. Those who mind don't matter, and those who matter don't mind. And those people that do not respect your boundaries, you need to build them a raft and ship them out off your island. And when they can respect you and your boundaries that you have set for your family and your sanity, then you can invite them back on your island. I love that analogy that you said. And
I'm going to send you that quote. I'll send you the thing from it. It's awesome. Really good.
Please do. And, I think setting boundaries within your parenting, that's something that I have just the hardest time with but I see it as, okay, I had a hard time because my 3.5-year-old sleeps in between me and my husband. But guess what? He doesn't wake up at all at night.
Right.
They're not coming. My older two sleep upstairs, but my husband has to start off with them, and then he comes downstairs, but nobody's waking up at night. Nobody needs drink in the middle of the night. So however, that needs to look. And so I think it's important for moms, parents, families, everybody to take an inventory of your life and see where you need to set boundaries and do it. We have a question.
Well, I have a statement.
Oh, she has a statement.
I love it.
Un momento, por favor.
Not let people who are new at setting boundaries feel ashamed because they don't even know what boundaries they need to set. Because in order to set a boundary, you have to be in touch with what you're feeling to know what you need. And
Yes.
that's something that people really need a lot of help with, is trying to figure out what I'm feeling and what do I actually need right now. So many times I'm like, I need help, and I didn't even know what kind of help I need.
Absolutely. And I think
Yeah.
it's important with a new mom, because especially if no one's told you about these big feelings and about the overwhelm and anxiety that you may feel, but in learning in pregnancy, you know, hey, these are some of the boundaries that you may need to think about and all of that stuff. And, you know, like she said, not knowing what you're feeling, not knowing what
Right.
boundaries need to be set, and being gentle with yourself.
Yeah, because as things arise, you're going to realize what your limits are. And taking a mental note or writing that down, be like, this is my limit. I got really close to that. Like, how can I set a boundary there? I think it's,
Absolutely.
I'm big on journaling, or even if you have like the notes app on your phone, just like writing it down and saying like, okay, I need to come back to this because I hit a really bad limit with this, and I need to figure out how to work things differently. Nobody knows how to do it right away, right? Like, I didn't even learn about it until I went into therapy, and I was like, oh yeah, I need to set boundaries with my family. Okay, so how do I do that?
Yeah.
Like,
My artwork, she's laughing, I'm laughing, because I know, because I go to therapy too.
yeah.
And my psychologist, Dr. Becca, I'm like, okay, so can you write down, like, okay, so what do I need to say? Okay, okay, cool. Yeah, all right, I'll say that. And then what do I say next, you know? And so then the next week I'm like, okay, I said this and this and this, and then this happened, and then that happened, and what do I do next? You know?
Oh, I love, that's literally me.
Yeah, you know, it's like, well, you know, Dr. Becca said that I should set a boundary with such and such and such and such, you know, because that it is so validating. And then you're like, well, she's a credible source because she's got this doctorate, she's therapist, psychologist, all of this stuff. And then also it gives us the courage because we know that somebody is standing behind us and helping us, you know, almost like holding our backs up. Don't waver. Don't move. You're going to be okay.
Yes.
This boundary is important. It's not about them. It's about you, you know?
Right. And realizing that, right? As like kids, I know I was a very sensitive child. Like I was very in tune with everyone's emotions. And I know as a mom, like I tend to deal with everyone's emotions at the expense of mine. And that's not okay. It's okay to like put yourself first and your emotions first sometimes.
Absolutely.
Especially a new mom. I know when I was first going through postpartum depression and anxiety, I wasn't confident in what I was going through, but I knew, like my daughter had a severe dairy allergy. I knew something was wrong. I had a doctor when I was diagnosed. So she was diagnosed at like 4 weeks postpartum. And that whole month I was like, something's not right. This is not right. But I was also going through the depression. And I literally had the doctor say to me, nothing is wrong with your daughter, Kim. It's you. You have postpartum depression. I'm like, okay, great. Thanks. Like, I know that, but also like something is wrong with my child and I need your help.
Amen.
So,
I think every mom has been there. There needs to be every provider, when you have someone that comes in and says, when you have a mom that comes in and says, there is something wrong, you need to believe her.
Right.
Because we didn't come by this just happenstance, like we're just going to create a problem. No, we know that there is an issue. And so setting boundaries with providers.
If that provider doesn't work for you, they're gone.
Bye.
Find someone else if you can, or reach out to like the moms in I always say, someone's like, oh, I don't know. I'm like, do you have a mom's group? Do you have a Facebook moms group? Go in there. Look, say, hey, do you know, like a pediatric GI who is like, listens to you, who listens to your problems are.
Absolutely.
That is like the mom network. What you're doing here. Like, it's getting everyone together and having those people be a source to lift you up and your confidence and support you.
Absolutely. Gosh, you are so fun.
I love you. I've been watching you like, I can't wait to... When they text me, they're
I would
like,
just have, yeah, I know. I would just have the best friends. I mean, I have best friends here in North Carolina too, but I'm like, all these Jersey people are so cool.
I'm from Connecticut, but it's close to Jersey, right?
Yeah. Well, no. What did you say about New Jersey and Pennsylvania?
Yeah, so I actually live literally like right on the border of Pennsylvania and Jersey. Like I can see out my window, Jersey's right there. I live in
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So I'm from Connecticut. My husband's from Maryland, but we both ended up in we moved to New Jersey.
Yeah.
So I just claim New Jersey because I
Yeah.
relate to Jersey really well.
Yeah.
I'm very passionate and I swear a lot and
Yeah. See, I am from New Jersey. Hey, that's what it is.
We need a Zoom chat. We all need a Zoom chat.
Yeah, totally. So tell us how we can follow your blog.
Yeah, so I am at the Millennial Mom Blog. Here, I'll put it in here. And you guys can follow me on here. You can follow me also on Mom to Mom. I don't hold back, so
yeah, we would totally be BFFs.
I tend to say things. I literally screenshotted something from my local moms group this morning, and it was like, I'm about to have 202. Like, what's something I need? And someone was like, tequila for you, not the babies. And I was like, yes.
A therapist.
A therapist.
What do you need? You're going to need some dermaplast for your vagina.
Yes.
Think of something else.
Just go get the diapers. Don't even worry about the pads. Who needs those?
Oh, yes. No. Yes. We're way past that.
Yeah, so you guys can follow me at the Millennial Mom Blog. And I'm always interacting with everyone in the network, and I'm happy to talk.
Yay! So excited. I hope that when the Maternal Health and Wellness Network launches, that you're going to join us and be a part of our Speakers Bureau and, you know, all of that good stuff that we're going to have going on, because I'm sure you are an invaluable resource, and it's so awesome and refreshing to have somebody so honest and, you know, open about what's going on in their lives and so real and all that good stuff. Love it.
Yes, love it.
All right.
All right. Well, have a good day.
You too. Nice meeting you.
You as well.
See ya.
Bye.